Story 1. The Sound of a Child at Midnight. A true event from a family that never found an explanation for it. The family lived in an old house that always carried an eerie atmosphere. One night, the mother, alone at home, heard the sound of a child crying from the living room. Her own child was fast asleep in their bedroom, but this sound, it was different. Terrified, she followed the sound but found nothing. As she turned to grab the phone and call her husband, the crying started again, this time right behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing there, just an old mirror that had been passed down from her husband's family. Shaking, she grabbed her phone and ran out of the house. When her husband arrived, they searched the house together but found nothing. However, from that night on, every time they cleaned the mirror, tiny fingerprints appeared on its surface. Fingerprints that didn't belong to anyone in the house. One night, the mother decided to confront whatever was haunting them. She stood in front of the mirror and whispered, "Who are you?" The room grew colder, and the reflection in the mirror shifted. Instead of her own face, she saw a child, pale with hollow eyes, staring back at her. The child's lips moved, but no sound came out. Then slowly the reflection reached out, and the glass cracked. The family moved out soon after, but the mirror stayed behind. The new owners reported hearing faint laughter in the dead of night, and sometimes the sound of tiny hands tapping on glass. Daniel and Sarah ventured into a remote, untouched forest for a weekend getaway. Deep in the woods, they stumbled upon an abandoned wooden house. Daniel insisted on exploring it, but Sarah felt a deep unease. She waited outside, but after 10 minutes there was no sign of him. Reluctantly, Sarah entered the house. The air inside was unnaturally cold. She turned on her phone's flashlight and called out Daniel's name. Suddenly, she heard whispers from the upper floor. She climbed the creaky stairs, her heart pounding, but found no one. Then, in a dusty mirror on the wall, she saw Daniel standing behind her, staring at her with hollow eyes. She spun around, but he wasn't there. Terrified, she ran out of the house and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house but found no trace of Daniel. Stranger still, they discovered that the house had burned down years ago. Yet Sarah had seen it intact. Daniel was never found. The only thing left of him was a faint image of his face in the broken glass of the house's mirror. Months later, hikers reported seeing a man wandering near the ruins of the house, his face pale and his eyes empty. When they approached, he vanished into the trees, leaving behind the sound of faint whispers in the wind. Arash was the night guard at a luxurious high-rise building. Every night before his shift ended, he checked the elevators. One night, as he was about to press the button for the top floor, he noticed an extra option. Floor 13. The building only had 12 floors. But curiosity got the better of him, and he pressed the button. The elevator began to move, but it didn't stop at any of the floors. The lights flickered, and when the doors opened, there was no floor, just a dark, foggy hallway. Arash tried to press the close button, but something moved inside the elevator. He heard the sound of wet footsteps on the metal floor. He turned around, but there was nothing, except his own reflection in the elevator's polished walls. And behind him, something was standing, something with a wide, unnatural grin. Next morning, Arash was gone. The elevator worked perfectly, and there was no sign of floor 13. Security footage showed him entering the elevator, but he never stepped out on any floor. He simply vanished. Weeks later, a maintenance worker reported hearing faint laughter coming from the elevator shaft. When they checked the cameras, they saw a shadowy figure standing inside the elevator, its face pressed against the glass, staring directly into the lens. The figure's lips moved, forming two words. "Come in." The building's management sealed off the elevator, but residents still claimed to hear the sound of wet footsteps, echoing through the halls at night, and sometimes the faint ding of an elevator arriving on a floor that doesn't exist.